look, we didn't know where this photo was. This was in the album, and I again, crowdsourcing history, I put it up on Facebook and said, does anyone know where this was? And look, within minutes of me doing that, people had come back and said, that's Tufu Tafui, on the end of, near Filoialii.
Yeah. Hands up. From the reef to the club, let's go. Post Polynesia twice. We go wave after wave after wave, let it ride all night.
Tony is a writer, historian, photographer based in Auckland with a deep connection to Samoa. His work lives in a space most people don't see. But without it, a lot of our history would quietly disappear. That raises a real question. Who gets to tell our story? Because much of our history wasn't written by us. So today, we're going to sit in that space between what's recorded and what's been lived. So without further ado, welcome, Tony. Welcome.
Hello, Tony. Welcome.
Malo Sukua, Leaso Filoialii. A great pleasure to be here and to talk to people from the America's most famous state, shall we say?
Not really that famous, but especially where all the beef is at. It's all about the
all the beef. And all the 10-gallon hats are at.
Right?
Right.
But there's a debate whether Auckland, New Zealand's steak is better than Texas. So I don't know. I haven't really tried.
Yeah, well, it's pretty good here. I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian, so I can say it's pretty good here. But I haven't done a comparative test.
Oh wow, sounds like a challenge for you, Tony.
Well, let's get started. Tony, thank you so much for taking the invitation to be on our podcast. It's an honor to have you on here. Before we get into the work, who is Tony Brunt? Who are you as a person, and what shaped you early on?
Well, I was brought up in New Zealand. My dad came from Samoa. He was half Samoan, and he spent his early years on Savai'i at a plantation behind Safotu called Matapo'o. And that had been bought by Granddad from a deceased estate of a German count, Werner von Bülow, who died around 1910. So Dad spent his early years there. Then they moved to Apia, and then he came to New Zealand for education to the Maori Agricultural College, which was a Mormon institution in behind Hastings. And then later he married a Kiwi, my mother, Joyce, who was of English, Scottish, Irish descent. But I was really brought up in a Palangi environment here in Auckland, and Dad did not talk much about Samoa, sadly. He really adopted the Kiwi way. And so when he died in 1971, I was really quite curious. I really wanted to get to know him, and so it really involved me going back to Samoa, talking to my auntie, who had stayed behind when all her siblings came to New Zealand and to America. And so, look, I really give my dad credit for my deep interest and curiosity about Samoa, Samoan history, Samoan culture, because he never talked about it. It's crazy. It's a sort of perverse thing, but Dad never talked about it. And so really my journey into Samoan culture and my Samoan roots began after he died. So hence my long-lasting interest in Samoan history. I'm feeling that if Dad had talked about Samoa a lot, I probably wouldn't be too interested in it now. But because he didn't, I'm pretty curious.
Wow. I never thought that you are Samoan. Because even especially with your last name, and you look more Palangi than you do Samoan. That's pretty interesting. You probably get that a lot too.
Yeah, great-granddad Charles Mallow Brunt came to Samoa in the 1860s and settled on Savai'i. I tell you what, there were not many Palangi on Savai'i in the 1860s. He settled at Whangamalo and had a family, married a Samoan from Lano, and he ran a trading store for the Godfrey organization, the big German traders who dominated the Samoan economy in one form or another for 40 years, 50 years. So Granddad, he spent practically all his life. Great granddad on Savai'i.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm assuming if you ever travel quite often in Samoa yet, but I have to ask, did you get a chance to get a Matai name bestowed upon you?
Yes. That was about 30 plus years ago. My grandmother, who was a Swanky, German name, she was from Alipata from Malala, and they sprung a Salfa'i on me 30 years ago. So I've got a long title. It's unprecedented. No one else has got it, unlike a lot of Samoan titles. It's Mata Mata I Manu Ua Fortu, which sort of means behold the blessings that are to come.
Wow,
so
that's pretty cool.
I tend not to use it. I tend not to use it. But my cousins in Samoa pretty much all, and here in Auckland, all call me Mata Mata. So, yeah.
Well, I have to say, Ma'alole Fioma Matamata.
Malo, Maua.
So how did that formal culture recognition change your responsibility towards the story you were uncovering, especially bestowing the high title upon you?
Yeah, well, look, I'm very conscious of the need to align myself with the values and courtesies of Samoa when I post my historical material, my photographs, and I think that's why people follow me. I mean, I've got 11,000 followers on Facebook,
Nice.
and as you know, it's mainly photography, historical photography that I've been able to find, mainly from private sources and archive for the Museum of Samoa. But I'm very respectful of people for sharing their images because, I mean, I've had access to major private collections, and people trust me with their photography to put it out there. But do it in a respectful way that doesn't demean or diminish the people in the photographs or the donors. And so I'm very careful to be very strict in my courtesy and the sort of civility with which I use the photographs. And I think that I think that reflects the Samoan way, to be honest. And that's why people trust their photographs with me, because they know I'm going to post them in a responsible and a respectful way.
I noticed with the photographs that you post on your social media, you have questions about the people that are in there as far as like, who are they, where are they from, or what family lineage. And it's nice to see with social media, you get the power of getting a hold of so many different people that they're able to tell you who they are. It's pretty interesting.
Look, I feel it's sort of, I feel it's breaking new ground, to be honest, Leaso. Academic history and academic journals and academic historians have a role, but I think social media is actually enlarging history. It's quite a revolutionary development, and really it's really got into the swing of things in the last 15 to 20 years, and it's expanding history because it's allowing crowdsourcing of additional information. When I put up photographs, as you will have seen, of people who are unknown or landscapes that were never captioned in these collections, people come forward and they're able to participate, and debates start, and the commentary threads can become really animated and helpful. And this is one of the fantastic benefits of social media, and Facebook especially. I mean, Facebook's got 3 billion users around the world, so there's no way I'm going to diminish Facebook. I think it's opened up phenomenal new opportunities for historians. Most academic historians shy away from social media because they sort of don't want to be defiled, and they want to remain pure academics. But to be honest, they are ignoring to some extent an area that can really enlarge and illuminate history.
You're absolutely right, because growing up, in American Samoa, they had this small museum right in front of the Rainmaker Hotel. And I would go there once a month to visit because I was very inspired by the artifacts and the history. You need to use social media because there's a big outreach out there. Like you said, Facebook has about billions of people utilizing the social media. And how many of those people were able to experience walking into a museum? The only way to get it exposed out there is social media.
Yeah. Also, just an interesting thing. When they also introduced me to about being on the podcast, I wasn't really sure who you were until she send me your Facebook page, and I was looking at a lot of pictures and everything. As far as the work that you have done, a lot of great photos that you've captured, and there's something that caught my eye that you call yourself a happenstance, a historian happenstance. That you describe yourself as a happenstance photographer. How do you think that spontaneous modern eye helps you connect with the amateur snapshot taken by Samoan families 100 years ago?
Yeah, well, look, Kalani, I've worked in the private sector all my life. I'm not an academic, and I started out my work career as a reporter for the New Zealand Herald, the country's largest newspaper, many moons ago, and I would always travel on assignments with a photographer. So I did the words, the photographers, the professionals did the photography, and but then later on, in the later stages of my career in industry, I got into architectural photography and became a photographer, learned a lot about the trade. So photography became bigger in my life, and especially documentarian photography. That's photography that captures realistically a slice of life, generally not posed, but it records social history, it records cultural history, and it's photography on the fly, and that's what I really value in a lot of the collections that I've been given access to by private people. These are happenstance captures on film, and they're really exciting. I think documentarian photography is so exciting. And because it actually reflects the culture, whereas posed family photography or group photography doesn't quite do that to the same extent. So I've evolved from a journalist into a photographer, into a photographic historian, and into someone with a real interest in documentarian photography, not just in the Pacific, but also in Polynesia, but also in New Zealand. And so I'm very interested in historical New Zealand photography as well, and Tongan photography.
Nice. Thanks for answering that. Do you prefer to let the narrative unfold naturally? Let's just say that when you're in the process of taking the photo, do you let that unfold naturally before you even prescribe in your own perspective before you take that photo? Or when you go back and look at that photo, do you change that narrative in your own ways?
I let it happen as it happens, but I also you have to plan ahead. Like I was in Samoa a couple of weeks ago, and we held a historical church service, the Methodist Church in Malu on the south coast, in an old ruin of a church that they'd used 50, 60 years ago and had since fallen into disuse because the village moved. So they were going to do a candlelit parade walking down from the current village to the old springs where they'd always drank and bathed, and then a memorial service in the ruin of the old church. It was a fantastic opportunity, but I always think ahead when I'm doing my expeditions where I'm going to place myself, the likely shots that are going to be coming up. So I'm not into just historical photography, as you know. I'm into documentarian current photography in Samoa. And also you've got to be awake for shots that are going to unfold, and suddenly you'll see a shot. I need to take that because it's such a good capture. And like we had a Leo Tofanga at Malu 6 months ago, and that was we had to disinter five graves and move them 300 meters up the road. And it's like a new reburial. it's got a lot of Samoa going on with it, a lot of ceremonial and a lot of speeches. But so I had to really pre-plan that. We began that at dawn, and we had boys from the village disinterring the remnants, and it was a phenomenal opportunity to actually get photography of a really photographed event in Samoa, Leo Tofanga. And one of the great regrets is that I didn't have my camera right on my chest ready to pull up at like within 1 or 2 seconds, because it was a fabulous shot, and I actually wrote about it on Facebook. On one of the graves there were 6 or 7 people just on the far side of the grave. I was on this side, and they were all staring down into the grave that had been opened. And it was a phenomenal capture, like the Iwo Jima picture of these guys just frozen. And I missed it because suddenly someone moved in front of me. I needed to get my camera up like within 1 to 2 seconds. You've got to be that aware, and that really in cultural events especially.
Wow. I can imagine that moment you wanted to capture it, but it didn't get a chance. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure that you probably wrote a great story about it that everybody can actually picture that in their mind of how that you can describe that very pretty awesome classic moment. And I don't know, Leaso was showing some pictures. I had to ask her to see if she would share the PDF. A lot of pictures that were captured in some of the photos. May I ask, were most of those photos captured by yourself, or was it some of the photos that you got it from the archive photo folders? Or
Well, obviously my historical photography I've got from private people, ordinarily all around the world, and some massive albums. Of course, I've actually gone in and photographed myself and taken my scanner to people's houses and annoyed them for a day or two sitting at their dining table and I was scanning their albums. But people overseas have also shared through WeTransfer or Dropbox. They've shared, look, this image here that you've just put up, that's what actually got me into this whole journey 20 years ago. Wow. I've got a distant cousin she's passed on now, whose father was a German settler in Samoa in the early 1900s, Werner Sasse, and that's him standing on the far right. I didn't know that for 10 years until I got comparison photos from the same shoot. But this photo got me in because I thought it was a fantastic piece of documentarian photography, settlers and Samoans, and I saw this in her album. I was writing the Brunt family history in the early 2000s, and I went round to her place. I said to Agnes, "Can I come round and scan what you've got, because I want to put it in the Brunt family history?" And she said, "Come round," and I did, and then I saw her photographs from her German father and from the German period, and I thought, wow, these are really good. We need to get more of these out there. There must be so many people out there who've got amazing photography in private albums, and we need to actually get this digitized before, in case they pass on and their children are not interested, and the albums end up in a rubbish skip in the house, outside the house when it's being cleaned out. So that's what really drove me. Now, this photograph really inspired me, and so I scanned all of the photos that Agnes had, and I wanted to try and identify who the people were in this photo. Now, she had no idea who any of these people were, and it took me another 10 years. So I thought, I'm going to drill down into Samoan history, Samoan photographic history, etc., and try and find out who these people were. But it took me about 10 years to find out who a lot of these people were. And the young lady in profile, dancing and smiling, is a young woman. I thought it was Aggie Gray, and so I drilled down into Aggie's history. But it turned out we're pretty sure it was a young woman called Anna Maria Stowers, who died in the 1920s. She died quite young. And that's Agnes's father. Yeah. From the companion photos we got, that's Agnes's father on the right, another German beside him called Hans Kerner, and a few other people there. I love this guy playing the banjo. Now look, that photo took me 30 hours to restore. It was covered in small spots. I know how to do edit in Adobe Photoshop, and it took me 34 hours to get rid of all the small spots in this photo. But anyway, so that's really what got me on the road. And what happened, if I might bore you for another 30 seconds, is after I'd scanned Agnes's photos, I wrote to the Minister of Culture in Samoa and said, hey, look, we need to actually go on a project to scan private albums and preserve this photography. And I'm prepared to do it. I'm prepared to start on this journey. And he never replied. And I was seeking funding, so I thought, oh no, I will do it anyway. I'll fund it myself because I've worked. So that's really how it all began. When he didn't reply, I thought, okay, that's fine. I'll do it anyway. So all of my historical archiving and posting of the last, 15 years or so, I've done it without any form of compensation. Now that's Agnes. Agnes. That photo was from her collection, and her grandmother was Mary Brunt, who was a great aunt of mine. So Agnes passed on nearly at the age of 100, about 6 years ago. So I'm very grateful to this woman.
So she had the pictures for you.
She did.
Wow.
She had the pictures, and she let me annoy her for some days, sitting in her lounge, scanning her albums.
Wow. What does it feel like physically and emotionally in the moment you open these dusty boxes and all these pictures coming up? The piece of history no one has seen in maybe 100 years, 20.
Kalani, it is a real buzz when you get access to new photography. Obviously, there's lots of photography in public collections and archives and that, and that's good. But when you come across private albums and there's amazing photography, it's a real buzz for me, and that's sort of what's kept me going, I guess.
Well, I mean, for the time that you put in, as far as like trying to get these pictures come to life with none of any contributions or anything coming through, I can just imagine the mixed emotions that go through your mind. So, thanks for sharing, and I'm pretty sure that there's plenty of other photos that Leaso has that she can share while you can go through it if you don't mind explaining it to us.
Well, look, this is. I mean, every now and then you come across a phenomenal acquisition, and I was online some years ago, and about 2015, and a woman, I put up a photo gallery, an exhibition online for the Museum of Samoa. It was about 400 or 500 photos in the end, and someone commented from Europe and inferred that she had photography from Samoa. So, I circle around like a vulture when I hear things like that, and I swooped, and it turned out Gessa Akamanola was her name. Gessa, a woman of mature years in Holland. She was from Germany, and her grandfather had been the last general manager of the big German company in Samoa, the DH and PG, which had originally been Godfrey, and which had dominated the Samoan economy for 30 or 40 years. And she said, hey, look, I've got an album. I actually said to her, have you got any photographs, Gessa? And she said, look, you know what? The other day we were moving house and I came across my grandfather's old photo album. So yes, I've just recently rediscovered it. And then we got talking, and I said, look, can you send me some photos from your phone just to see what's in there? And she photographed a few pages, and it became clear that these were wonderful photos, and honestly, there were nearly 500 in this album.
Wow.
And if we put up the next photo, Leaso, this guy was her grandfather, Carl Hanson, and he had been, the company was closed by the New Zealanders in 1916, and he came back to Germany eventually, and he spent his retirement putting this album together, and Carl Hanson, and he died in 1942. But it was, and then I said, look, we need to get this album digitized, and she said, yes, I'll get a professional to do it, and she got a professional to do it. She spent, she sent me through WeTransfer the whole album in high resolution, and eventually she and I got together, and we decided the album actually needed to go into an archival institution, and she gave it to the big museum in Hamburg. But that was after she sent me a full digitization of the whole album. So look, it's 491 photos, 374 from Samoa, and 117 from Tonga, and 95% of them had never been seen before. They were taken by DH and PG company photographers for the most part, and so that's why I really wanted to pay tribute to this family and to this man, Carl Hanson. So I sent you, Leo, so a few photographs from this album. If you want to, so that's what a typical page looked like, and the people at the bottom, of the two photos at the bottom of the Milford family. He was a big boat builder in Apia, and those are his daughters on the left. So that was just a typical page. And that's Mr. and Mrs. Milford. See, these photos have never been seen before, so they were, this is the wonderful thing, you put up photography, and family members who've never seen photographs of their grandparents or their parents. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. Yep. He was incredible. He was an incredible boat builder. And this is another photo from the album. It's an Ali Pata couple, circa 1915, and we think we know who this guy was. So there's some nice photography of traditional dress, especially on the left, the gentleman.
When they take the photos, like, this is not really their everyday attire. This is just for taking photos, right?
Totally. Yes, these people would have had some notice, and they've got into more traditional display dress, I guess. Yeah. And that's another one taken at Alipata. Now look, these are some of the companion photos that allowed me to identify the people in that original photo I showed you from Agnes Sussing. And these are the people who were in that original photo I showed, and I was able then to identify quite a few of the people here. Now look, Tulsi Gabbard's grandmother, great-grandmother, is in this photo. Wow. And that's the woman on the left, in front with the long necklace, and yeah, that's her grandmother. So we were able to make some really interesting identifications in this photo.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if she knows that.
I think she has seen. I mean, I put these up some years ago, and I think a lot of the Gabbards commented.
Okay.
I think Tulsi has seen these photos, I would suspect, because we put these up on the Museum of Samoa Facebook page in around 2018, 2017, and I think, I think she probably has seen these. Look, we didn't know where this photo was. This was in the album, and I again, crowdsourcing history, I put it up on Facebook and said, does anyone know where this was? And look, within minutes of me doing that, people had come back and said, that's Tufu Tafui, on the end of, near Whalealupo, on Survey. And they recognized the rock formation, and there was a grave law up on top. You can see it up on top of the thing behind. And so, you know, social media, I just think social media is one of the great things to happen to photographic history. It really is. And that's photos from Tonga. This was a cultural event that we're pretty sure was attended by the King of Tonga, in the early 1900s, taken by staff members of the DH and PG who were visiting Tonga at the time. I think this is on Ha'apai. So we got some good photography came from that album. Again, Tonga, the poor Tongan women, perhaps more so than the Samoan women, were under the thumb of missionaries. So really they had to cover their bodies from neck to ankle, and and sleeves, long sleeves was the thing. It's a shame in a way that the Tongan womanhood were, while they had to wear dress that was pretty hot for the climate.
Yeah.
The guy on the left, I think, giving some notes. Now look, giving some money, and the guy on the right probably doing the same, making a donation. But the next photograph, Leaso, is of the Solf family collection. When I was in Germany, I was nearly 2 years ago, I was artist in residence at Bremen University for 2 months with my wife. And when I was giving a speech in Munich, I befriended Caspar Solf, who was a grandchild of the German governor of Samoa, the first German governor of Samoa, Wilhelm Solf. And we got talking. We formed a great friendship. We had actually been in contact online, but we met face to face. And then about 7 months ago, I said to him, "Look, who's got the Solf family photography?" I actually thought it was in an institution. And so had never really pushed any member of the Solf family for their collection. And Caspar told me, he said, "Look, my sister Gabrielle Mylard in Switzerland has got all the albums from Governor Solf and his grandmother, who'd been in Samoa from 1900 to 1910." And he said, "She's got all the albums, and I'll try and get them." And so he got them down to Munich, and my friend, who's a curator at the big museum, the Museum Fünf Kontinente at Munich, Hilke Totorora, she digitized the whole thing, and so suddenly we've got a collection with nearly 1,000 photographs from these albums, and I've been releasing quite a few of the better shots over the last 4 or 5 or 6 months, and so it's great where curiosity can lead, and these are albums that would never have been digitized. Well,
it amazes me how the photos are well kept, and it's not like you could tell with the paper how it's been placed in there. It's not, I don't know, when you open it, did it feel like it was moist and damaged by air?
Well, it was Hilke who opened them. I've not actually seen them in 3D. Hilke's done the hard yards in Munich, but they are in great condition. And look, you've just put your finger on another very crucial point, Leaso, and that is the very good photo collections of Samoans and of Samoan history reside offshore. They don't reside in Samoa. And that's for a very good reason, and that is the Samoan climate is just so hard on photography. You've got mold, you've got mildew, you've got humidity, and the worst thing, of course, is the cyclones going through, the hurricanes. And they've destroyed countless photographic collections over the years. So I think we can say pretty confidently that most of the well-preserved photo collections from historical Samoa exist offshore.
Boom, 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 earth shake, silent fever. Wave riders, lava rivers, no deceiver. Baseline thumping, sharp cuts like cleavers. Coconut shell drumming, heartbeat.